All right, welcome to this episode of Monetizing Your Mental Capital. I'm your host, Will Christensen, and I am excited to have Max Sinclair here. Max, thank you for joining us from Econ, correct?
Correct. Yes. Great to be here.
Awesome.
Thanks, Will.
Ecom it's actually really funny because when I hear the word Ecom, my brain immediately goes to like Boy Scouts because that's where I spent a lot of time in tents.
That's what we're going for.
Well, then
No, it's not. It's a mix between e-commerce and e-content. So that's why where the name comes from.
Oh, I like it. Okay, all right. Ecom.
Funny story is what like one of our so we help sellers to generate lifestyle images, infographics, text, etc., etc. But one of our earliest customers did sell tents, and we were kind of using them as an example of like, hey, look at these AI generated tents that we put the tent in a field, someone sitting in front of it, a fire, etc. And like, given that it was tents and it was called e-content, I think people were quite confused at that point. We're over that now.
I love it. I see the ecom tent now, and I got the content aspect of it. That's nice. That's nice. So and apparently you're I see Techstars. So is that where you kind of is Techstars like kind of where the startup started? Because you've been around for a minute now. How long has it been?
Well, as we're talking, we've been live for about 2 years now.
Okay.
Yeah. And Techstars is an accelerator. So they were an early stage investor of ours. We were out in San Francisco for the program during October to actually January this year. So we're out there on the program for 4 months.
Very cool. Very cool. And give me the 30-second version or the elevator pitch. What makes Ecom different? I see a lot on your website around AI and listing optimization. Help me understand a little bit more about how you guys differentiate yourselves.
So as I mentioned, we help sellers to generate optimized product listings, primarily on Amazon, although we do others, lifestyle images, infographics, A+ content, all of that. I guess the big differentiator for us is we are really focused on optimizing sellers for AI-powered search. So we've seen Rufus and Cosmo, maybe listeners have heard of it, but quickly, this is kind of like an LLM-based search, which is already been in beta testing live on the Amazon website. Rather than just putting in text to find a product, like a water bottle, you will soon be able to, if not already, talk to Amazon like ChatGPT, ask it questions, and it will give you 5 products rather than 50 products back based on your specific tastes and price point, and et cetera. And we are really the company which are going to help sellers to adapt for this new world. So that's kind of where a lot of our time is spent, where our focus and energy is. We're kind of the next generation of catalog management.
Gotcha. So on the note of like up and coming kind of shifts and things like that, I was talking to Kevin Lee, who's just an old time seller. He's currently an agency owner himself. And as he was kind of describing some of this shift, that's exactly how he described it. He's like, it's going to be like this. And this was several months ago.
Yeah.
And I actually was getting on Amazon the other day, and I noticed that chat interface. So I think they're slowly rolling it out. Yeah, slowly rolling it out to multiple people and having kind of that interface. And I actually find it super interesting. I mean, on the topic of AI, I'm literally and I'll just anecdote here for a second. I was last night making little glasses for my family, and we like put vinyl covering on top of the glass, and then you put acid on it, and it etches the glass and makes an image on the glass. And my daughter was like, Dad, I really want a winking cat silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went on Google and Google Images, winking cat silhouette, and then you import it into the Cricut software, and you can get that up. And we could not find one that was like winking. And she's like, it's got to have its tongue stuck out too. See, here's my picture. And she drew me a picture, and I was like, oh boy. So I searched for probably 10 minutes or so, and then I was like, wait a minute. And so I just went to ChatGPT 4 and I was like, winking cat. Okay, here we go. And sure enough, we got the winking cat face.
There we go.
Totally nailed it. And then to top it off, I have to show you the next picture because here it came down the line, and we went a step farther. Hold on, let's get this screen share play. So you can see the winking cat face made it to the front of the glass with my daughter's name on it and everything, and then we etched it, and I'll have to put a final image of it in the show notes. But you can see, and this is before I put the eyes on, right? I did end up, actually putting the eyes on. But from conception, literally from the 6-year-old's brain to like, boom, we actually had something, because there wasn't anything, we couldn't find anything on Google image search. So pretty fascinating what's possible.
Yeah. I think we are all going to get super used to this very quickly. It reminds me of like the Jeff Bezos. So I was at Amazon for 6 years before this, and like the Jeff Bezos kind of mantra of like customers, the innovations that we have, and I'm paraphrasing, either we work so hard for today, like the customer expectation tomorrow. Like, you do this amazing thing with Prime, you get like, same day delivery across the country, and suddenly like everyone just expects that, and that's just standard now. And I think with this LLM powered search that's going to happen on Amazon, it will quickly be the new, and I say quickly, like my prediction is by the end of the year we'll have the majority of people using that rather than the current search. So it's I think these things are going to move even faster than technology we've seen in the past. I think that's what happens with technology, just kind of the speed increases. And I don't think people really can get their heads around how much selling online is going to change. Like it's almost impossible for kind of our brains to kind of compute this stuff and imagine things being totally different in 7 months, 8 months time. But that's where I believe we're going. So I think it's a great example of kind of how it's just going to be so integrated into how we shop and everything we do.
Yeah. And how things have got to shift.
Mm-hmm.
So Max, as you consider, and monetizing your mental capital is about identifying knowledge that can then be monetized. And that's kind of our overall focus on the podcast, is helping Amazon sellers who are really good at monetizing physical products, give them a back scratcher that needs to be sold on, or that has a market to be sold to. And they're going to make some good money on that. My curiosity is, why would someone who is wanting to monetize their mental capital, so the non-tangibles, why would someone like that want to hear from you?
It's a fair question, and you should be asking yourself this. I guess I would say we've had a pretty successful runway to doing this. So we mentioned we've been on Techstars. That's kind of one of the, maybe you've heard of YC, and maybe not, which is the world's best accelerator. I think Techstars is kind of the next biggest one, although a lot less famous. We've had the backing of eBay Ventures. We have got customers who are 14 billion retailers. So we've kind of got very big companies now that we're working with, and e-content. So, I've learned a thing or two over the past few years on how to do this. So I guess maybe that's
okay. So you've monetized some of your own mental capital up to this point, and there's some fairly reputable individuals backing you.
Yeah.
Like. All right. I like it. So tell me a little bit more about the business you run. It looks like it's like maybe a tech-enabled SaaS or
exactly.
What? Okay.
We're a SaaS company. We have kind of different packages from 100. The smallest is $165 a month, depending on when this goes out, because we will be increasing prices in the next period of time. But currently, the smallest package is $165 a month. And then the largest is kind of like custom pricing, for enterprise. But we do have like an agency package, which is roughly 1.5K a month. So we have various packages. But yeah, it's a either annual, monthly subscription. how we work.
Got it. And so, looking at things there, what led you to creating a product like this?
So as I mentioned, I was at Amazon. I spent 6 years there, and my now co-founder showed me the first release of Stable Diffusion. And if you don't know what this is the first open source AI model where you could put in text and generate an image. And he showed me this about a week after it launched. Like I think it's September 2022. And basically, I could immediately see how transformational that would be. And I said to him, would it be possible to, place a product into the image you're generating, not just create like a random image, but create a product lifestyle image, because my background was e-commerce. And he kind of built a scrappy version of that over the weekend, and it had all the problems of hallucinations and distortions and everything else. But I could immediately see the potential, and really believed it was kind of obvious how transformational this would be. I think and we went full time since then. And I guess in December or November of that year, kind of ChatGPT was launched, and that again, like it transformed everybody's understanding of this, because before ChatGPT, we were kind of doing this thing like AI generating images from text. It was new to people. People never really experienced like prompting or anything like this before. I think ChatGPT accelerated it in an unimaginable way, and it became more of an arms race, right? It's now about being the best one, best on the market, highest quality, raising as much money as we can, serving as much customers as we can, and gaining their trust. So we kind of, the kind of game shifted a few months into the business. But yeah, that's how we got started.
Mm-hmm. And as you've dove into that, I mean, it sounds like, did you leave Amazon to go in and start this business?
Yeah,
okay.
Almost immediately.
Almost immediately. I was like, and I'm out.
Well, I'd always wanted to run. I ran my first business when I was like 16 at school, so it's always been like, entrepreneurship's always been a big part of me. And I guess I tried to do a few side hustles. I'm not sure if your listeners are kind of like on this kind of side hustle life, but my personal experience of it was I was frustrated with myself, because I knew that I was dedicating like 1 or 2 hours every other evening to a project. And if you've got a full-time job and you've got a social life and family, et cetera, there's just not enough hours in the day to do everything. So kind of when I saw this technology, I felt that this was like being at the start of the internet, and it was like, this is just a once in a generation time. So either you're kind of all in now, or this is going to pass you, it's going to pass you by. Someone else is going to do it. So I guess, we're like, it was kind of, I felt like this deserved all my time and attention.
Love it. And did you immediately, jump in, and you had, individuals who were kind of backing you and kind of digging in with that side sort of thing, or what was
we didn't have investors immediately. No, I guess we had our first customer a few weeks afterwards. So we were selling very, very quickly, which was important because we're getting a lot of feedback. We're getting a lot of live feedback, kind of in contact with the real world. And I think one of the reasons that our tool is so, and I don't want to sound facetious, but what is the best out there is that we have been learning since day one of this technology, what works and what doesn't practically with customers. And obviously it's getting better over time, and everything is, the base models are improving, and that's a great, the rising tide is lifting all of the boats, and it's great. But at the same time, there's some things we learned pretty quickly about what worked, what didn't work in terms of the technical side of it, as well as the pricing models and like we didn't used to be a SaaS business, so like all of this stuff we learned from just kind of having customers from a few weeks being a few weeks old.
Got it. So, you mentioned, I want to go reel back a little bit. You mentioned that very first opportunity where you were monetizing mental capital. And maybe it wasn't the first time, but you mentioned that back when you were 16 years old.
Yes.
So is that, I mean, it sounds like that's kind of at the root of you wanting to be an entrepreneur and dig in those
Mhm.
ways, right?
Yeah, so I like when I was 16, I like threw up a website basically helping my school friends find jobs, dog walking, babysitting, gardening, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I leafleted the local area, managed kind of like this service type business for these kind of stuff that people do at that age. So that was really my first like foray into entrepreneurship. Um, I've run like couple like I've run an online business. I've run as I said I've run a few side hustles that I didn't feel, as I said, I couldn't give my full energy to, so didn't act, weren't particularly noteworthy at all, to be honest.
Uh-huh.
But it's always been a like it's always been a has been a goal of mine.
Gotcha. And as you've pushed into monetizing your mental capital, what would you say have been some of the biggest roadblocks?
Um, some of the biggest roadblocks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, as you've now gone on this startup journey, you jumped off the cliff literally without a parachute, landed somehow on the ground, continued to run down the pipeline. You
Mhm.
now have a SaaS business that you're building, and you're staying on that cutting edge of AI. And I can imagine it's a fairly disruptive time just because there is so much that's advancing so quickly. Um, what have been some of the challenges that you faced as you've wanted to monetize that mental capital?
I think what my dad said to me, which is good advice. My dad ran a bagel business for, he ran a few bagel shops for 18 years, whatever it was the biggest, not tech business, but it was quite interesting, was the biggest challenge is actually customer indifference, when the customers just don't care, right? They like your bagels, they don't love them, they have no loyalty to your store, and that they're kind of indifferent to you. And I think expanding that out further, like the most important thing in that I've learned is really to get a deep understanding of the customer and really focus on solving that, and understanding their needs and pains beyond what they just say to you. The underlying motivations behind them, like why do they want this, why do they want that. It obviously monetary and is a big one,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of doing stuff faster is a big one, but
Mm-hmm.
are they trying to become, in our case, right, a lot of customers are trying to become AI leaders in their companies, right? That
Mm.
one day they want to reposition themselves and their career as being on the edge of AI. We can help with that, right? We can help them implement a new solution that's going to save everyone a lot of time and money, and is going to make them a hero in their company. And that's a very powerful motivation to drive through big contracts and legal and all the rest of the stuff that you have to do. So
Yeah.
that's one example that I've found in my business. But I think really understanding the customer and what's driving them beyond just like, saving money is obviously important.
Yeah.
Everyone cares about money, but like you need to go 2-3 levels deeper than that to really be, to be successful, in my opinion.
Got it. Interesting. So what drives you, or what drives the customer? Because
Yeah,
if you can understand that underlying motivation, you can tap into that for an engine of growth.
exactly.
So tell me, what questions do you ask, or what ways have you identified that underlying driving motivation?
Honestly, there is no script to this. You go on a call and you just listen to the customer. The best way of doing this is get on a call with a customer who's purchased your product and just ask them why did you purchase this? How did you come across it? What made you do the decision? Who signed it off? Did anyone sign it off? Did you just do it yourself? What were you hoping to get out of it? Like, and you just let that conversation flow really naturally, and you will pretty quickly get to the point where the customer's just talking to you for half an hour about everything in the business, right? Not just about, when they purchase your content, but you will, through that decision, you will get a lens into everything that's driving them in their position. Like, maybe it's their own business, maybe it's not their business, but they're a senior leader. Maybe they're not a senior leader, but they're like, there's 100 different profiles of people that at least I've come across, and I think those conversations really help you. And often people say, "Oh, I want this feature, like A+ content. We want A+ content. We build A+ content. That's the easy bit." But to think about how to deliver it well and in a way that really hits their needs. You need to kind of have those conversations and be listening.
Interesting. So, I mean, if you were brand new at this, and maybe let's go from that perspective. Let's imagine that you could make a phone call back to the 16-year-old, right? He's about to throw up his website, and you call him on the phone, and what advice would you give him around monetizing mental capital and or specifically discovering that deep-seated need, discovering that the deeper motivation of customers?
Well, I made the classic mistake that probably everyone, like as you say, the audience mostly e-commerce sellers, so probably everyone's made this, which is like, here's a great idea that I've had, people will want this, and then I'm off from there, right? That's the starting point. That was the starting point of this business, right? And I said to you, I was like, oh, let's create AI generated image, like product images. It's going to be huge. It's a great idea. People are going to want it. And I think to do everything properly, and I'm talking about product and marketing and set everything in the business, you need to understand the motivation. So I would have encouraged myself to, and I didn't do this at the time, go to parents who are looking, who are the customers and looking for babysitters, and say, hey, like, what's wrong with how are you finding your babysitter at the moment? What's wrong with the process? Do you trust the people? Do you how are you finding them? Are they're coming from referrals? How easy is it for you to identify people, and just have that discussion with some of the potential customers, which I never did, right? I never did that at all. And just interview like 20, 30 people. And I think that would have given me so much more insights into what do I say on the website, right? What's the selling points of this business? I don't know. I haven't talked, you have a hunch of what you think it is, like, local people, local school, blah, blah, blah. But like, maybe they didn't care about that. Probably not. Who knows, right? So you have those conversations, and then you work out, what does the product look like? What are the repeated phrases that people always are coming back to? If you do these like 20, 30 conversations, you'll notice that there's certain phrases that like everyone is saying, which is really interesting. So for e-content, like, everyone wants speed to market. Like, everyone's like, I've just got this product, I want to get it on the market ASAP. And we have these conversations with people, and it comes up time and time again. Like, I'm worried about speed to market. I want, either it's not my business, I'm the head of Amazon or the head of marketplace, or I'm whoever, and like, I've got people I'm reporting to, and they're pushing me for stuff. I want to get there quicker. And you kind of identify those little phrases and patterns across the conversations, and that's how you're doing your marketing. That's also how you're doing your product. That's how you're leading your product development. So there's that's what I would advise myself.
Interesting. So how do you feel like that would change it for him? Like, what do you think he would do differently with that piece of advice?
I think the website would have been different. The product could have been different. Like, we didn't really like have a product build like forms and websites and me doing it, but like, let's say I was trying to build that into a tech business, a product would have looked different, right? Like, the booking system or whatever would have been different. Like, how do you keep the same person you like, or whatever? The pricing could have been different. Maybe I could be charging more for certain things, or I need to be cheaper, like whatever. Who knows, right? So that everything, rather than me just saying I've got a great idea. And maybe I think some people, like if you're Steve Jobs, right, you can get away with this. You're like, I just have this incredible vision. I am going to, I've got this incredible vision of like a personal computer, and nobody knows this apart from me. And I'm just a brilliant vision. But I think for 99% of us, quite frankly, we're not Steve Jobs. And therefore, you're probably not right in all your intuitions about how you should describe something and what the pricing should be and what the product looks like. How could you be? So therefore, that it just helps you in that regard.
Interesting. So, I mean, obviously there's an opportunity there to dig in and become something more. I love it. I love it. So would you say that like understanding that underlying demand or underlying driving motivation is the largest roadblock in monetizing mental capital? Or would you say there's something else that's even more difficult?
What do you define as monetizing mental capital?
I mean, anything. So I define mental capital as anything that's not physical, right? So a service-based business or a SaaS business.
Got it. Okay, fine. So, okay. Yes, number one is a customer pain, and I think maybe a lot of your people who you're talking to, they have their own pain which they're solving, which is the best thing. I mean, if you're solving a pain that you've never experienced and you never talked to anyone, like I was, I've never booked a babysitter, and here I am solving that pain at 16. Like you're completely off kilt. You've got no idea what you're doing. So you might, if you're not going to talk to people, you might as well not do it. It's just like it's going to be a waste of time. I think the second one is about finding things that people really love and building things they really love, because it's easy to get people to try something, especially if it's a new technology like what we've got. $165, you'll try it, right? You probably try it, see what it's like. Don't like it, it's costing nothing. Well, it's costing $165, but like if you're putting that on Seller Labs, it's probably it's not your money. Who cares? But building something that people really love so they stick around is a lot harder. And that's what you need if you want to have really viral growth, because you need your customers to love it so much that they talk to their friends and their people about it. So like, I'm a founder, right? HubSpot is a great example of this. I've been recommended HubSpot by so many fellow founders. So many people have told me, oh, you've got to try it. You've got to use HubSpot. We're using it for this, we're using it for that. Like, got it. So when it came to like getting a CRM, even though I've had like Monday.com ads on YouTube down my throat for the last year, I'm not going to use that. Like, I don't care about the ads. Like, I'm going to use, we're going to use what the people have offered to me. And yeah, like it's more expensive, but in some ways, if it's a good product and not price sensitive, if all my fellow founders are telling me that I need to use HubSpot, and I'm building a CRM, I'm going to use that, even if it is one of the most expensive ones apart from Salesforce. So I think working out how to build something that people really want to love and they want to talk about and they want to, they're gonna kind of give you that viral growth. Like we've spent zero on paid ads, right? We've never run a Google ad or anything like this. So everything we've done has been based off recommendations and podcasts like this, and I'm not even sure how we got connected, but like it's probably someone on your team, someone in another podcast, which so like all of it is done by kind of word of mouth, viral growth, customers, and that is probably not sustainable over the very long term, but it's important, and I think and it's a challenge. So I think that would be the second thing, is like just because you're getting people to try something doesn't mean that you're onto anything yet. Obviously it's a great start, right? It's a good start, but that's not the time where you pour on your Google ads and you pour on your whatever else you're doing to kind of try and boost the business. You need to be building on top of a strong foundation that people are sharing themselves.
Yeah. It's interesting as you talked about that, I got thinking about some of the monetizing of mental capital that we've done at Seller Labs. And one of the things we did was we chose a niche. And we went clear down and said, okay, we've been serving e-commerce sellers for a long time. We've also served some agencies, and we started to do data as a service or data as a product, and try to create clean, pristine, clear databases that a seller could use to access the Amazon data in a way that was just, revolutionary from the standpoint of nobody's changing any columns randomly. Nobody's, messing with the way that it works. And when there are discrepancies, we know why there are discrepancies because we spent the time to go pick apart each one of those different pieces. And as I looked at that and we kind of picked things apart, we decided to choose to focus on agencies. Because they began to understand and could see the why behind the data, right? So we understood that the product we had was sophisticated enough that the average seller wasn't super interested in kind of connecting those dots. And then we kind of niched down even farther, and we started to really try to get inside the heads of the agencies. Now, what pains are they feeling specifically? And what does that look like? And we started to realize that there was an opportunity to create an automated audit process. And the cool part about this is it doesn't have anything to do with a seller. So we've built an e-commerce tool that's literally focused on just the agency owner, right? And so the agency owner wants to go in and audit an account, and we go in and we build an automated audit or lead gen process where we're able to completely eliminate the data gathering portion of that and make it so that it all just imports into their Seller Labs account. They've got full access and automating the complete audit process. And it was interesting because, like you said, as we began to understand their specific needs, things started to just flow a lot better. But it wasn't until we began to truly see what they needed and how they needed it and everything that came in that way that things actually started to shift and change and go in the right direction. So understanding that customer need at its integral level, I couldn't agree more. You've got to get down there, and niching down is freaking scary. Do you have any advice for anybody who's considering the idea of niching down versus, being to a broader audience?
I don't think there's a pro or con either. I think some companies are very successful because they go broad. So if you think about a GitLab or someone like this, right, their goal, or even a HubSpot, right, and that, like, you listen to their product leaders on podcasts, and they literally say, like, the goal of HubSpot is not to be the best email automation tool. The goal is we're going to be broad. We're going to have everything. We're going to have email. We're going to have social. We're going to have CRM. We're going to have, we're going to have everything. So that we're super broad, and therefore, like, people just want to, they feel comfortable. They sign up with us to get everything. It's not going to be the best. It's not going to be the best at one of these things, and you might want the specific companies get an additional, I don't know, email tool because, like, HubSpot isn't quite doing it for you. But so some companies do have, like, the broad strategy. I guess in my experience, we haven't raised millions of dollars, right? So, we've raised hundreds of thousands, but it's not a lot of money when you think about, employing a team and stuff. So we've kind of been, we've been forced. I agree. Like, I think as you're starting, you obviously need to be focused on it. You definitely need to be focused on a niche, but I don't know if it's better at scale. I think you could, as I said, like, I think there's different strategies. Depends what the market's like. Depends what customers are saying. Like, if customers are saying to HubSpot, like, hey, there's too many tools out there, and we want one thing that's going to do everything for us. Like, I don't want to, like, it's annoying that my email marketing doesn't talk to my socials. It doesn't, like, that's annoying. Then it's a different problem we solve. So those are a random collection of thoughts. I hope it was, useful.
No, I hear you 100%. So as we shift towards the end of our podcast here, I have two questions for you.
Yeah.
One, I'm going to give you 60 seconds where, let's imagine that you just stepped into an elevator with an e-commerce seller.
Yeah.
And he mentions, I do a couple million on Amazon. And so you're going to get 60 seconds to tell him a little bit about Ecom Tent. And you've told us a little bit about that side of things. Then right after that, I want to hear about any tips, tricks, hacks, or books that you've come across in the last year that have helped you monetize your mental capital. So jumping in, you got 60 seconds. You just stepped into that elevator, and the guy's like, yeah, we do a couple million on Amazon. We're doing a couple of other channels as well. Go.
Yeah. If you want my very bold pitch, I'd say to him, well, you're doing a couple million. I hope that you can continue doing a couple million by the end of the year, because what you're doing to get ranked on page, one of Amazon now is not going to be the same thing if you're going to optimize for LLM in 6 months' time. So you're going to need us if you want to maintain. And I guess our pitch kind of are less aggressive. It would be, you can use us. We're going to help you to save a lot of time and money by generating your content with AI and refreshing it whenever you want. So your images, infographics, whatever, copy. So it's going to enable you to scale your teams a lot faster and increase your conversion.
Beautiful. Just in time. All right. Now, finally, last but not least, tips, tricks, hacks, or books that you've come across in the past year that you believe could help you monetize your mental capital.
So I imagine anyone listening to this is probably a big podcaster listener. I'm a huge one. And I think one of the best ones that I'm absolutely rinsing at the moment is Founders. I listen to Lenny's podcast quite a lot, which is they get kind of like product leaders, and they don't normally interview the founders themselves. He tends to interview like the CTO or the CPO or CMO or something, someone else, which I think is quite interesting to hear, like different leaders who aren't founders talk about stuff. And anyway, he interviewed this guy on strategy, like one of the godfathers of business strategy, and he said that the best thing, he basically asked this question, what should you do to what book should you read or whatever, and the guy said the best books to read to understand strategy are not books on strategy, they are biographies. So you should read biographies about great people, see how they dealt with situations. So I've taken that advice, and I'm now listening to Founders, which basically reviews the biographies of different people, and it's amazing. So if you want to listen to how, Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or any of these people, kind of even like Napoleon or historical figures, like how they've Henry Ford, all these kind of people like built their companies and everything else, I think it's each episode is like an hour, and you get the details of that, and it's really helpful to think about what you're doing.
Love it. Founders. That's a fantastic tidbit, and not one that we've heard before. So super appreciate that advice. Max, thank you so much for joining us on Monetizing Your Mental Capital. We'll have you come over again another time, and in a year from now, we'll see if that LLM prediction is a reality.
If it's right, I'll come back on. If not, I'm not.
Sounds good. We'll see you in a year, because I'm guessing you're right.